Hello, I'm Askar Sherlief and you're watching the news from Kazakhstan. A border guard from the infamous Arkan-Kergen outpost is possibly alive. This information was published on Tuesday by Guljan.org website. According to it, Rustem Akilbayev returned home and his relatives are hiding him. Internet sources suggest that all three of the soldiers whose bodies are claimed by the prosecutor's office as unidentified could have survived the massacre at the border. If this information will be confirmed, the official version about 14 soldiers and a huntsman killed by 19-year-old border guard Vladislav Chelakh will fall apart. The contact with the soldiers' families hasn't been established yet, but it is known that contractor Akilbayev, born on December 1st, 1991, was registered as residing in the Alakol district of the Almaty region. He was raised by his grandmother Biash Abdukarimova. The source noted that Rustem's family has been preparing for the funeral, but for some reason representatives of local administration were constantly in the house during all this time. The family of Pavlodar resident Denis Ray doesn't believe that their son is dead either. Ray and Meirkhan Imenov from Atyrau served at Arkan-Kergen outpost, but the prosecutor's office have not yet provided the official confirmation of their death. Forensic, psychological and psychiatric examinations of Vladislav Chelakh, the sole survivor of Arkan-Kergen outpost massacre, is about to end soon. According to the law, it lasts for a month. However, at the request of investigative bodies and doctors, it can be prolonged. Officials have not yet voiced any even preliminary results of the examination. The issue is being actively discussed on the internet and mass media. More details in the report.
On May 28, 2012, I killed 15 people. 1 month after the fact, Vladislav Chelakh's confession is still one of the most viewed videos in Kazakhstan. The response includes more than 100 comments, as well as entire groups set up in various social networks. Everyone still discusses whether people can believe the confession, and for some reason there are more of those who don't. So did you understand everything? Did you plan it through? I don't know. Apparently I did. The answer, as well as a detached facial expression of the suspect, led to a new wave of distrust on the internet and mass media. The video was seemingly released to convince those in doubt, but it looks like the move backfired. The word setup is used in comments all over the internet. We had a war, but we forgot the hero. It is like sending a Christmas card, but forget about the pie. We have a soldier left behind on the battlefield. This is genius. One of the comments references political classic Wag the Dog. In the film, President's advisors make the American people believe in a Hollywood-produced manufactured war just to distract them from a sex scandal involving the president. But at some point they gotta know. Who? They gotta know? Stan. Get with it. Who killed Kennedy? I read the first draft of the Warren report. Said he was killed by a drunk driver. You watched the Gulf War? What did you see? Day after day, the one smart bomb falling into a building. The truth, I was in the building when they shot that shot. They shot it in a studio. Falls Church, Virginia. 1/10 scale model of a building. It looks like people do not believe anything forwarded by our government, but it's their opinion. Specialists should look into this. Evgeny Golovkov believes that a forensic psychiatric evaluation and a thorough investigation will stop the wave of rumors and distrust. At our request, he watched the video with the soldier's confession, but could not make a conclusive judgment due to the scarcity of evidence on hand. Golovkov only confirmed that the young man seems to be in sound psyche, especially while testifying, and the reported inexplicable state of mind during the crime is questionable. Then it's not a process caused by an illness, it's the elimination of witnesses, premeditated and calculated actions. There are people who say that Chelakh indeed could have committed the crime due to Wagner syndrome. Psychiatrist Mikhail Vinogradov spoke about it in a Russian publication. The syndrome suggests that even the calmest of people subjected to consistent and long-term abuse may take gruesome revenge on the offenders. Internet comments might be worthy of headlines, but they lack essence. This is what little the forensic psychiatrist can say now, and even that is based mostly on personal opinions. After all, there is the issue of professional ethics, although off-camera may... As for the rest, it is 100% clear that he saw dead bodies, but to what extent he himself was involved in it, I cannot say for sure because there are signs that the man is not telling everything, or that he's making something up. It looks like there's a lot to be made up in this story at this point.
One of the leads in the Arkan-Kergen massacre, which was voiced by mass media, is the VIP hunting of high-ranking officials, presumably from the National Security Committee, which was interrupted by border guards. This particular lead and the massacre itself have seriously damaged the reputation of the NSC, while the president tagged the incident as a terrorist act, which are happening in the country quite often lately. There are now rumors over possible dismissals on top, and as Nursultan Nazarbayev has severely criticized the work done by the National Security Committee and his longtime friend Nurtay Bakayev, who heads it. Some experts believe that the criticism made by the head of state and the following rumors over the shifts within the NSC are nothing but are nothing more but political games due to the strengthening of inter-clan conflicts within the entourage of the head of state.
Who stands behind the strong criticism of the national security head Nurtai Ababayev? This question has been actively discussed in the press and online in recent days. Nursultan Nazarbayev's dissatisfaction with the work of the NSC served as the precursor of the issue. Later, people started talking about Ababayev's forthcoming resignation and theories about possible disfavor of the old-school officials. The most common theory is that Nazarbayev's scorn was in fact the doing of his rival, the head of the president's administration, Aslan Musin. Sources of website Respublika do not rule out the possibility of a new political intrigue started by the head of state. Someone in Astana doubts that Nursultan Nazarbayev succumbed to pressure from Aslan Musin and bullied Nurtai Ababayev. These people even assume that by doing this to one of his loyal men, the nation's leader made a cleverly thought-out move, which will let him understand whom the head of the president's administration will be setting up as the next chairman of the National Security Committee. It is clearly done to later neutralize Beria's people, or at least prevent them from assuming key positions within the organization. Nursultan Nazarbayev's publicly expressed dissatisfaction does not always lead to a staff reshuffle. Instead of dissecting press speculations, political scientist Nurlan Yerembetov prefers to speak about the essence of presidential criticism and side with the NSC. He believes that society should blame itself. Citizens themselves must inform the authorities about possible threats. Supposedly, if village residents were more watchful, the explosion in Tausamali wouldn't take place, preventing the head of state's outrage and all sorts of rumors taken off. We are discussing the wrong subject, and it is not the topic that we should be concerned about. The change of leadership in public institutions is less likely to affect my personal life. However, unless we enhance societal responsibility, we can't expect improvements in our lives. These discussions are far more important than talks about state's personnel elite. Why are we not holding society accountable for what is happening in the state? Nursultan Nazarbayev, like the famous USSR leader Khrushchev, likes to criticize and scare officials, but is not likely to fire anyone on the spot. According to former presidential candidate Salim Oten, the authorities represented by the president are the ones responsible for the events that take place in the country. He doesn't rule out the theory that all these incidents that swept the country in recent years are the work of rival factions in the presidential team who act in revenge to each other. Oten believes that in any case the president must be accountable for the appointment of officials who regularly let tragedies such as Tausamali happen. This is why Nursultan Nazarbayev needs some kind of reshuffling to divert public attention from the tragedy. He will move some officials around, but no one will lose public office. This is the tragedy of our state. The politician does not really believe that the president's criticism of Ababayev will lead to his resignation, since such moves may affect national security. Oten also compared appointed officials and the wheels of the president's carriage. Just like the change of wheels, the reshuffle will not affect the situation in the state as a whole if the driver stays the same.
Three children of Roza Tulitaeva, who was accused of organizing Zhanaozen riots and sentenced to 7 years in prison, are on the verge of becoming homeless. Her eldest daughter informed that Alliance Bank, who gave the loan, made an eviction notice. According to the bank notice, the Tulitaeva's apartment becomes bank property because the woman failed to timely cover her mortgage. Mother of 3 oil worker and activist arrested following Zhanaozen events, Tulitaeva was on strike for 7 months. 2 of her children are still minors. The eldest daughter, Aliya, failed to find a job in Zhanaozen. The Director General of Kazmunaygas Exploration and Production promised to help the young woman, but Ozhenmunaygas still refused to hire her. Off note, Kazakhstan law specified that it is illegal to take away the only housing from minor children. Zhanaozen residents are calculating losses caused by heavy downpours with stormy wind that have blown off the roofs and damaged power lines. As a result, hundreds of residents of the rebellious town continue to experience difficulties. The family of Ajar Uzakbayeva is one of the devastated ones. 7 months ago, she lost her husband, who was the only breadwinner in the family. On December 17 of last year, Jalgashbay Uzakbayev went missing without a trace. Since then, no one saw him, and all the attempts of Aljar to find her husband were in vain. More details in the next report.
There is no help and no information. I don't think that someone might not know something. Everyone knows everything. Ajar Uzakbayeva, a resident of microdistrict Aray 2 in Zhanaozen, is certain that everyone is aware of the situation, but no one is going to help her. Her house that her husband Zhalgazbao Uzakbayev built in a hurry has no electricity, and to make things worse, it was flooded along with other properties in the microdistrict after heavy rain and storm 2 days ago. However, this wasn't the worst thing for Ajar Uzakbayeva, as the real tragedy struck even months ago, when her husband Jalgazbas, the only breadwinner in the family, went missing following December events. He was last seen by his neighbors on December 17th and is now on the list of missing persons. We have searched high and low and hanged missing person posters at virtually every bus stop. The first time we hanged them, they remained untouched. However, some people took them off later. I was told that right after I hung the posters, I even handed posters to passengers to pass around in Atarao, Aktobe, and Beineo. We hope that someone might have seen him there, but it didn't help. It's been 7 months and we can't even repair the roof in the house. Ajar complains that her life is not the same without her husband and the house is slowly falling apart. The woman has no idea where and who to appeal to. All her attempts to find the husband on her own did not bring any results. Ajar believes that law enforcement officials are to blame because they were extremely aggressive during December events. Recently, neighbors told her that on December 17th, the day when her husband went missing, they saw people in uniform walking in the vicinity of the house. He walked here and paid a short visit to his neighbors. Then he took that road and went to the store for the last time, but we heard that people in uniform were walking around that day. Neighbors told me about it recently. The woman is asking herself why the government bears no responsibility for the missing man and for the riots in Zhanaozen when the police opened fire at civilians. Ajar is legally challenged and does not know whether she's liable for some kind of help by the law, only living with hope that one day her husband Jalgazbay will come back home.
In the meantime, there are rumors in Aktau over the release of public activist Serik Sapargali. He was arrested on suspicion of inciting social hatred with the leader of Alga political party, Vladimir Kozlov, back in January. Sapargali is mentioned in the media on rare occasions, with just few of his friends and like-minded people still demanding the release of the arrested.
Rumors that Serik Sapargali could expect a soon release from prison did not come true. The information about the release of the arrested politician appeared on the internet on Monday. I have no such information. He is still in detention, and there are no plans to release him. This prompted the internet community to recall that very few of them stand up for Sapargali, so they drafted letters of support to the detained dissident. Serik, be strong. Amid these crazy days when it is very hard to stay spiritually free, you are indeed a free person. I admire your self-control. I wish you good health and patience. We are standing by your side. Renowned stage director Bolat Atabayev spent almost a month in one detention cell with Sapargali. The interference of his colleague filmmaker Yermek Tursunov helped Atabayev's release. His fellow dissident Serik Sapargali is still detained, but is in good spirits. The mood in our cell was full of energy. They put us two old men together. They thought we'd share ideas and they'd listen in on our conversations. I believe it was possible, but what do we have to discuss? Women, that's right. Journalist Jambolat Mamai, who was released from the Aktau detention center last week, is now eagerly awaiting Sapargali's release after beating him in the investigation cell. I saw Serik in prison. He is cheerful, happy, and is not losing spirit. He is a real patriot of his country, the same as Vladimir Kozlov. The upcoming trial will be a big mistake on the part of authorities. It is wrong to persecute people like him, who stood up for oil workers. On the contrary, they have to be thanked for their civic stance. Sapargali still does not have such influential supporters like filmmaker Yermek Tursunov and former Secretary of Security Council Toligan Zhukeyev. His family is not close by either. The oppositionist is divorced. Perhaps this is why the politician's name is rarely mentioned in the press. However, his supporters, following the example of Tursunov and Zhukeyev, have written a letter to the NSC head Nurtay Abakayev, although no response has been received so far. He's in poor health, suffering from diabetes and other illnesses. This is no joke, obviously. Atabayev and Mamai have been released. Since there is already a precedent, it is quite possible to exercise this in relation to others as well. I am ready to stand up for Serik Sapargali, but I don't want to be pushed around like Tursunov and Zhukeyev. He is my namesake, a fellow countryman, a like-minded person, and just a great man. Sapargali spent almost 6 months in detention, charged with inciting social hatred, calling to overthrow constitutional order, and organizing a criminal group. Serik Sapargali has nothing to do with the Zhanaozen tragedy. Just like Atabayev and others, he went there to support oil workers. He was there only twice, just wanting to resolve everything within the framework of the law. Sapargali kept saying that these were our own people, who had no political demands, only social, and now the authorities want to accuse him of crimes he never committed. Many experts say that the main target for the authorities remains Vladimir Kozlov, the leader of the party pending registration Alga. All other participants of this case will be either released on their own recognizance or become witnesses. These forecasts are gradually coming true, as many of the people who were arrested at the same time with Kozlov have been already released, although it is unclear if Sapargali will be among them.
Politicians continue talking about the split within the opposition political party NSDP Azat. Journalist Janbolat Mamay, who was recently released from the Aktau pre-trial detention facility, shared his opinion in an interview to the newspaper Golos Respubliki, where he claims that he will make an exit if the leaders will not come to a consensus. I know that there are planted members in the party who visit President's administration seeking advice and receive guidance. I even can voice their names and other details. Of course, I don't have video surveillance or wiretapping evidence, but they openly blame each other for this very thing during presidium sessions. Many say that some people often meet with Musin, Kulibayev and Yesimov. I have no idea why they do this and what they discuss. But looking at Toyakbay's urge to become the only chairman of the party, I am beginning to realize that he and his group of pensioners are the Trojan horse of the opposition. Talks about a split within the Social Democrats party were around since the spring. The initiative of the NSDP party leader Jarmakhan Toyakbay to hold the National Council served as the ground for the behind-the-scene discussions. Back then, reporters and political scientists noticed that his associates Bulat Abilov and Amirjan Kasanov were not listed as organizers of the National Council. However, when directly asked about the split, the NSDP members always said that there were no disagreements, considering the National Assembly a civic project. Meanwhile, political scientist Maxim Kaznachev noted that the party's division into two wings is inevitable despite the denial by the organization's senior members. The issue of recovering the party discipline within NSDP Azat has been raised by party members, but unfortunately no serious procedural steps to resolve the issue have been proposed. Judging by the appearance of the party leaders at various events, it is possible to identify the positioning of the organization as well as its methods of work with the government. The heads of the Association of Entrepreneurs of Karaganda region discussed the mandatory membership in the National Economic Chamber at Tamiken. To recap, this issue was already raised in spring by the chairman of the presidium of the structure and the son-in-law of the president of Kazakhstan, Timur Kulibayev, and by the president Nursultan Nazarbayev himself this summer. Karaganda businessmen are outraged by the fact that they are being forced to unite.
Понятие обязательное членство предполагает обязанность субъекта предпринимательства.
The compulsory membership idea implies that business entities have to join the association that, in its turn, will defend their interests. If business entities refuse to join the association, they'll be facing administrative liability, which is not very logical. It's like if I don't join the association that will defend my interests, I'm going to be punished by this very organization. This turns it into a tricky legal aspect.
Меня же ассоциация и наказывает. То есть это возникает такой вот сложный юридический аспект.
At a presidium office meeting, Kulibayev noted that there are companies in Kazakhstan that can afford to support Atamiken and other business associations. The president's son-in-law also noted that the money required from companies was not a big amount. However, Atamiken could use these funds to attract qualified experts when preparing their proposals to the government in order to address various business issues. Following the statement and the president's support, businessmen in the country have been asked to join the association as soon as possible. However, Karaganda entrepreneurs who are used to working with their regional associations do not see the necessity to join. Some are afraid that membership fees will turn into new taxes. Others are worried that they'll be involved in solving state tasks. Karaganda businessmen have no unitary opinion on whether or not to join the association and promise to come up with a collective answer by September.
Мы пришли к мнению, что, во-первых, нужна концепция.
We believe that a compulsory membership concept needs to be developed. Secondly, the draft law on compulsory membership should be prepared. Will this be a part of the civil code or the law on private enterprises, or perhaps some other attending laws? Or it could be a standalone law that has nothing to do with the Chamber of Commerce and Industry and other self-regulating organizations.
То ли в гражданский кодекс, то ли в закон о частном предпринимательстве и сопутствующие законы, в налоговый кодекс и так далее, так далее.
Karaganda metallurgists who were demanding a 30% salary increase surprisingly agreed just for 3%. However, trade union members claim that the fight is not over yet, as they plan to resume negotiations on the increase of salaries in October. The conflict between Zhaktau trade union and employer lasted almost for 9 months. Miners of the industrial giant quit the protest action just the day before the warning strike by signing a settlement deal of 2.6% salary increase. The metallurgists managed to negotiate a 3% wage increase for themselves, as 7.4% is still a guaranteed indexation of wages related to inflation, which the workers would have received anyway. However, steel workers were also able to negotiate another bonus for employees who are paid less than $470. According to the trade union estimates, there are nearly 2,000 of them working for the enterprise. Employees whose salaries are $400 and less will receive extra $65 each month. Those who make $435 will be paid additional $45. And workers with salaries of $470 will receive $35 accordingly. This is a temporary agreement, and both parties will negotiate in October to discuss the possibility of arranging the level of wages in consideration of their present situation. The residents of Dosor village in Atarau region are dissatisfied by the living conditions. Villagers say that the houses that were built 100 years ago are no longer suitable for living. The ceilings are falling down and basements are constantly flooded. Several families live in these barracks. Dosor residents can't afford to repair homes on their own, as most of them do not have a regular income. People say that the local branch of oil company Kazmunaygas is reluctant to hire them. Officials are not planning to address the social issue. Representatives of the administration just say that the old buildings have at least another century of life in them. We live in constant fear that one day the ceiling will cave in, burying us underneath. Whenever it rains, the water comes down from the roof and basements are flooded with water and oil. We live on saline soil. Foreigners come here, extract oil and get rich off of our resources, whereas we live below poverty line. The residents of Timirlanovka village in South Kazakhstan region who were affected by the flood in February were finally provided with money. It took half a year to the government to clarify the amount of financial aid to be provided to the residents of the devastated area. Around $5 million were allocated from the state budget to mitigate the flood consequences. An extra $450,000 will be allocated from the city administration reserves. Officials need to decide on the exact amount of funds that will be set aside for the affected villagers. According to Special Commission review, 400 houses were flooded, 6 of them damaged beyond repair. In addition, funds in the amount of $570,000 collected by civil alliance and labor unions will also be distributed among the flood victims. The weather is raging once again. Storm warnings due to high temperatures were announced in 3 regions of the country. In some places, the thermostat has reached record highs. Find out when to expect cooler weather in the next report.
Record heat is reported across the country, with temperatures reaching over 40 degrees Celsius in some areas of western and southern Kazakhstan. The previously unheard of 43 degrees Celsius was recorded in the Aktobe region. Residents of the capital are trying to escape the heat in all possible ways, including Ishim's cool waters of the city beach. Meteorologists advise the population to stay inside between noon and 4 p.m. and drink as much water as possible. Even though forecasts promise some eventual heat relief, it won't last long. The summer scorch, as specialists predict, is only starting. Overall, the most heat will reach the north, center, and eastern regions of the country, where the temperatures will go as high as 39 degrees Celsius between July 19th and 22nd. In the west, such hot weather will settle on July 20th to 26th. In Pavlodar region, the unusual heat is holding up for a week now. During daytime, temperature here reaches 38 degrees. People have been trying to hide in the shade, stockpiling cool drinks and flocking to the beaches. Due to the heat, the region had to issue a weather warning. The emergency ministry reps say the heat wave could harm not only children and people suffering from blood pressure fluctuations, but motorists as well. In high temperatures, cars may experience mechanical malfunctions, causing traffic accidents. Just yesterday, we had 3 traffic accidents with a lot of victims in need of hospitalization. We even had instances when the water in car radiators started to boil. Meteorologists say that the current exhaustingly hot weather will stay until the second half of August, although the temperature is not likely to beat the all-time record high of 47 degrees.
A company assisting students in processing documents for the work and travel program has cheated its customers in 4 different cities. Students say they were charged money, after which the company simply stopped all communication. The total number of victims of the scam is 110 people. Even law enforcement officials do not recall a con of such a massive scale. The next report from Astana has more.
Gauhar Bakhtiarova, a student of the Eurasian National University, should have been in the U.S. through the work and travel program 2 months ago. Bakhtiarova used the services of a private company, while her father took out a loan of $2,500 to pay for the fare. But the American dream was not to be, as the company's management disappeared early in the summer. The worst thing is not them disappearing, but that law enforcement agencies cannot help us. Everything is very hypocritical. There's a lot of talk about youth being the future of the country, but when time comes to action, they slam doors in our faces. The ruling party took our case, but keeps silent for now. The student herself says that she's a victim of a classic scam. The company works properly for a few years, and then upon accepting new orders, suddenly declares itself bankrupt and shuts down. 110 students, including Gauhar, are now fraud victims. Consumer Protection Association, which assured that it is possible to recover the money, yet it's hard to say when. According to some reports, the company's CEO, Timur Smatov, has fled the country. We can't find the executive director of the company, otherwise we'd launch litigation. The office is closed, and he's currently somewhere in the United States. The office in Astana is indeed closed. Employees of next-door companies say that no one appeared there for 2 months. However, the plate with the contacts of coordinator Janat Zhintayev is still in place. He was indeed easily reached, yet the conversation was rather short. Yes, there were complaints from students while I still worked there. Did you quit because of these complaints? In the meantime, students' parents intend to take the matter into their own hands, as the summer vacations will leave more time to deal with the issue. Although the National Financial Police Department hasn't received any statements from the fraud victims yet, but assured reporters that an investigation into the case could be easily initiated upon request.
Historical monuments are demolished in Almaty. On Tuesday, the city lost a statue of Russian literature expert and linguist Viktor Vinogradov. 34 more objects are next in line for demolition or exclusion from the registry by the decision of the Municipal Department of Culture. 11 architectural monuments of local importance were excluded from the state list. The former airport Medeo Hotel, Merchant Murov's residence, Sofia Church, Hadjayev's house, General Governor's office, Semirechynsk Regional Department for Ethnic Affairs headquarters, Rail Station Almaty 1, General Store, NKVD Club Theatre, Gardner Breusov house. 9 monuments, 2 Lenin statues, Kirov statue, Yemelev bust, Vinogradov bust, October Revolutionaries monument, Frunze statue, Kalinin statue and bust, as well as 15 archaeological monuments. Burial mounds located in micro-districts Ulzhan, Kokkaynar, Stroitel and Zarya Vostoka. According to Mayor's office staff, there are 146 monuments of architecture, archaeology, urban planning and monumental arts in Almaty. The officials found that 35 of them lost their historical and cultural significance. The government decree determined the fate of these monuments on December 30, 2011. The decree also talks about cancelling the status of historical and cultural monuments of Almaty and their exclusion from the state list of locally important historic and cultural monuments of the city. In the meantime, an open-air library has opened in Almaty. Over the course of 2 months, residents and guests may spend time outside while doing something useful and pleasant, reading. The project's objective is to instill the love for books. The library was organized by the US Embassy in Kazakhstan. Various publishing houses supplied it with science and fiction books, which will be available free of charge and without library cards. The embassy plans to oversee the open-air library project until September. Many city residents, especially kids, don't have access to books and places where they can read them outside of schools. It seems that we're losing connection with books at the very moment and place where we need them the most. The embassy is bringing books back to our lives. This is all we have time for now. Thank you for watching. Stay well.